Hello, I'm Charlie Wells. I'm Director of Strategy at Sapient Nitro. We spend a lot of time in the communication industry trying to work out what is the communication message, what is the thing that we want to sell or say to our audience. What cultural capital is all about is trying to understand a kind of shared purpose so that you can actually start building long-term value for your brand within a specifically defined culture. So we have lots of ideas and thoughts and models about how brands should best play in the culture space rather than just in the communication space. So there's a number of different methodologies in order to create it, but we've been devising a methodology for measuring cultural capital, and it fits around three major principles. How much you influence that culture, how aware that culture is of you, and last but not least, how much does that culture accept you within their kind of subculture. So you measure those three big principles within your culture and you compare those scores to the general population. And if you have a great acceptance, great awareness, great influence over the culture compared to your primary audience, you have a foundation for creating great cultural capital. I used to work in the social media space, and I'm actually kind of head of social for Europe at Sapient as part of my role as Director of Strategy. So we spend a lot of time within the social media space. And what's been very interesting is you started to see brands move away from trying to kind of obviously broadcast and become the celebrity within a culture, and they've started to outsource that kind of their disciples and their acolytes or their influencers and mavens or whatever you want to call them to the social media space. It's allowing people to have direct conversations with brands. It's allowing people to share. And so the key thing that I think made a massive difference to the marketing space, we're not really talking about what's the key thing we want to tell our audience anymore. People are starting to think, what's the key thing that we want our audience to be talking about? And that's actually a massive change in mindset for an industry that's been based around this single-minded proposition for the last 40, 50 years. More so than ever, I personally believe that the brand should own the voice in the social media space. So I don't particularly like these models where you outsource your social media presence to some social media managers that sit within an agency. I think that works in the short term, but in the long term I think you'll see them moving back in-house. Where I think agencies are really important are, you can just do a social media campaign, but how do you create real social experiences? How do you weave social into every element of your brand? And what I think is exciting to be an agency at the moment is brands used to be about communication. Now they're becoming about the full purpose of your business and every touch point, every kind of core value. And hence, when we talk about cultural capital, people can start playing in that space. So I actually think it gives agencies a bigger role because all of a sudden brands become more important across multiple parts of the business. There are three major areas we work with clients. So we spend a lot of time helping them understand insights. So they don't use social media enough to understand their audience. So people do kind of very top-level listening reports, and then they run off and start trying to create a cool, hip and groovy social media campaign. You really need to make sure that those insights are actionable, and so you need to build actions that and affect all the different parts of your business. So we spend a lot of time with our clients doing that. The second thing they get wrong is infrastructure. So they don't have the teams in place, they don't have the processes in place, they haven't kind of decided who's going to own it or whose budgets it's going to be. So it's very siloed at the moment. And actually, if you really believe in social, you're putting people at the core of your business. And so you're actually restructuring your whole organisation around people. And then the third thing they get wrong is they think about campaigns and they don't think about social experiences. So you need to think about social not as single channels, but actually as a mechanic. It's about how people share, how people talk, and then you choose which channel you want to be on there, not just ticking off, I've got a Facebook page, I've got a Twitter feed, I've got a LinkedIn page, etc., etc. We've been hiring a lot of 18-year-olds, well actually probably more as the 21-year-olds out of university, and what we're actually looking for, my biggest thing is curiosity. I find that a lot of people kind of who are very young should be far more curious than they are in how things work, asking questions, really burrowing into things. So I love to see evidence of people who've just found these new toys and these new technologies. No one understands them 100%, I don't expect anyone to, but at least they've gone in there and they've experimented and they've tried and they've played. And creativity is the second one. So I think it's very easy to think, oh, social, you can do nice things, but how do you spin that into an idea? How do you create an experience? How do you plug that into a culture, like we were talking about today? And so if you can see how people have kind of got this kind of concept of ideas, and they're working with that, but they're also really curious and they want to play, and they've got a kind of playful mind, they're the people I want. So come over and find me.